And then Thomas says to him, Master, we do not know where you're going. How are we able to know the way? And then Yeshua makes it very clear. He says, look, Yeshua says to him, he says, I am the way and the truth and the life. So he says, look, I am the way. So now he's telling him there is a path. But see, it's not just knowing who Yeshua is that's the way. It's not just knowing about him or what he did that's the way. It's knowing all of what he is that's the way. That he is the living, talking Torah. He says, I am the way, also saying that if you do what I do, you'll be where I am. In other words, imitate me. He told us to imitate him as he imitates the Father. And so it's the imitation process. And so that's why we have a teaching called, What Did Yeshua Do? Well, he kept Torah perfectly. So he says, I am the way and the truth. So he says he's the truth. This is the verse that launches that 3 or 4 verse loop that I like to do to prove Yeshua is the Torah. He says here in John 14:6, he says, I am the truth. And then we have in Psalm 119 and in verse 142 and in verse 160, and I'll actually read it to you here. So in verse 142, it says, your righteousness is righteousness forever, and your Torah is truth. And in verse 160, it says, the sum or the entirety of your word is truth, and all your righteous right rulings are forever. So there are 2 verses that say that Torah is truth, the word is truth. And then we go to John 1:14, and we're told that the word, this truth, put on flesh. And so there you have, Yeshua is the walking, talking Torah. And so here, the word is made flesh. So he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So you paired it all together. What he's saying is, if you walk in truth, according to the way, you'll end up with life. That's how you end up in life. If you walk the way in truth, in Torah, the way has to do with the derech, the path. And the walking is the halakha, the walk. And you walk that derech, you walk that path in Torah, in truth, guess where it leads? Life. And that's why he's able to say, look, he says, you do know the way. You do know what you need to know for all of this. You need to know everything about what and who I am in my entirety, the fullness of what that's all about. And he says, look, if you had known me, then the rest of the verse he goes, but no one comes to the Father except through me. Okay, so all of this path is leading where? Into the kingdom. And what's in the kingdom? The Father. It's all leading to the Father. And he says, no one comes to the Father except through me. So what does he mean by me? Well, he means the way, the truth, and the life. The only way you get to the Father is through Torah observance, walking it out, staying on the path, not turning to the left or the right, not adding or taking away, and that leads to life. Because you see, where the Father is where life is. See, what we're doing now is we're breathing and we're quote-unquote living. This is not life. Okay? Because life doesn't end. What we're doing has an end. It dies. We can die. Life doesn't end. Hopefully you can kind of catch that subtlety there. Life is eternal. We die. When we actually are transformed from the image of this fleshly thing into the image of the Father, then we will have real life. And the Father is where there's life. The Father is not where there's death. So we have to come through Yeshua to get to life. We've got to come through the blood. We've got to come through the crucifixion. We've got to come to the Father through all of that. To life. To dying to self. To carrying our own crucifixion cross, so to speak, our own stake. He says you got to bear that stake yourself and come before and go through that whole dying to self so that you could be reborn. We talked about that last week. He says those who are following him in the rebirth. So he says no one comes to the Father except through me. And that's the whole point of all of this, is coming to the Father. That's Yeshua's whole purpose, was to bring us to the Father. The ministry today should all be about bringing people to Yeshua so they can be brought to the Father. And a lot of times people say, oh, well, we need to be just bringing people to the Father. You can't. You got to bring them to Yeshua. He brings them to the Father. Yeshua just said it. No one comes to the Father except through me. So I've got to bring people to Yeshua so Yeshua can bring them to the Father. Ooh, that may change a few thoughts. That's the real reason to bring people to Yeshua, because he brings them to the Father. But if he's going to bring them to the Father, he's not going to bring you all smelly and reeking of death and sin. He's going to bring you there as an unblemished lamb. He's going to bring you there as a bride with her white garments. He's going to have to clean you up first. Yeshua's job is to clean you up. Guess what Yeshua is? He's the walking, talking Torah. Guess what Torah does? It cleans you up. You see, it all fits together so beautifully. Let's continue in verse 7. He goes, if you had known me, you would have known my Father too. From now on, you know him and have seen. Now, he says, if you had known me. Now let's remember, scripturally, when you see that word, it's talking about having a deep and intimate relationship. If you truly knew, understood, and had a relationship with me, then you would have known my Father. Why do people not understand all this? Because they really don't have that kind of relationship with him. They think they do. These are the ones that come up to him and say, Lord, Lord, we did all these things in your name. And he goes, get away from me. I didn't know you. You workers of unrighteousness. You workers of lawlessness. They thought they had a relationship with him. You know, in 1 John, John says, those who say they know him and have that relationship with him and do not keep his commandments are liars. And the truth is not in them. Let's look at that for a second in 1 John chapter 2 and in verse 4. Okay, he says, the one who says, I know him and does not guard his commands is a liar, and the truth is not in him. Doesn't that make sense, though? If you say you know him and keep not his commands, well, obviously, it shows you really don't know him, because he is the walking, talking, living Torah. He is the Torah Giver from Mount Sinai, so clearly you don't know him. Because if you knew him, you would have the truth, and if you had the truth, you would keep the commands. Because the truth is, he's the Torah Giver. The truth is, he's the Torah in flesh. He was the one manifesting in the flesh in the Torah. And so he says, but whoever guards his, Yeshua's word, truly the love of Elohim has been perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. So he's saying, look, truly, if you guard the word, if you guard Yeshua, if you guard the Torah, if you guard the truth, we just did that whole loop, right? The word, the truth, the Torah, Yeshua, they're all the same thing. He says, if you guard that, truly the love of Elohim will be filled with integrity in you. I hate the word perfected there. I think that's not the idea, because if it's perfected, that means you cannot mess it up again. It's not perfected yet. He says, however, if you guard it, then you will be perfect. So we can use it on the context as long as you're guarding it, then you're going to be perfect. But we're not going to be perfect in guarding it. That's the problem. Was it clear about that? He says, if you're guarding it, the one who guards it, then the love of Elohim is perfected in you while you're guarding it. Of course, you could always choose not to guard it. That's the problem. He says, but the one who says he stays in him ought himself also to walk even as he walked. That's the whole point, going back to John 14. By the way, this is John talking both times. This is the point. This is like his big message. This is John's big message here about what Yeshua said in John 14. He wants to convey in his own words here in 1 John. That this is all about walking as he walked, being like him. And so that's really, really key that we understand that. He goes, let's drop to verse 9. It says, we're still in 1 John. It says, the one who says he is in the light and hates his brother is in the darkness until now. He used the word light there. Even in verse 8 he says, again I write to you a fresh command, which is true in him and in you, because the darkness is passing away and the true light now shines. What is light also connected to? Yeshua, the Torah, the Word, the truth. Those are all words that interchange. And when you see the word light, because you know that he's the light of the world, that Torah brings light into your life to understand what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. It enlightens you as to how the Father expects things done and what he expects not to be done. And so we have the one saying here, look, but the one who says he's in the light, in the truth, in the word, in the Torah, in Yeshua, but hates his brother, he's still in darkness. He's obviously not in light. See, I'm doing all of this to bring you the context from John 14 to understand all these things tied together. You need to amplify the word yourself, not get an amplified Bible, but amplify it yourself. That whenever you see the word or Torah or truth, or light, or even bread, these things are all pointing at Yeshua. or life. Okay, he is the way, he is the path. The way, all these words, all are pointing to Yeshua. So when you read them, you need to then bring out the fullness of that understanding by you amplifying those understandings.